The loudest, the biggest, the brashest. New York is its own character in every play.
The bad thing about New York is the pressure. You're always under pressure.
Here are the stories about those plays. It's New York Accent with Damon Amendolara.
Welcome to the most recent episode of New York Accent, a story about a New York athlete, sports figure, coach who had great success in this city. Now, our next guest might be the most New York athlete that didn't actually grow up here in New York, because he played for the Knicks when the Knicks were really the essence of this city. Tough-nosed, hard-nosed, never backed down, and he was one of the floor generals and heart and soul guys of those teams. Joining us here on the show today, former Knicks and Nets guard, Chris Childs. Chris, how we doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. Getting ready to play a little golf here, but I always have time to talk about what's going on with my Knicks, and looking forward to the next game.
This is one of the coolest things ever, having you do it from your golf cart. You and I have done a couple of interviews together before, but never while you were actually sitting on the cart. So this makes you the most badass guest we've ever had here on New York Accent.
Hey, I love it. I love it. As long as I stay number one in New York, I feel good about it.
Right on. So, when you were growing up in California, the NBA might have been a pipe dream. You began your career, of course, at Boise State and had great success there, but you were not drafted. You had to grind at the CBA for a few years. When you're coming out of college and you are not drafted to the NBA, what's your mindset of trying to get to that level?
Well, you have to be honest with yourself initially, disappointed, because if you're usually, like, I was picked to go late first round, then I'm, in Sports Illustrated next to, guys like, Rod Strickland, Tim Hardaway, Dana Barrows, and all those guys. I expected, not to be a lottery pick, but at least a late first round draft pick. Never occurred. And of course I sulked, I cried at a draft party. Didn't happen. I remember like it was yesterday. I went in my room, locked the door, and everybody panicked. My father said, give him a couple hours, he'll be okay. And I stayed in there. I came back out. I called my agent at the time and said, hey, it's time to go to work. I got more to prove. And I got back in the gym the next day.
It's an impressive story, but that was always your attitude. When you played for the Knicks, it always seemed like nothing could ever really faze you. You were so hard-nosed and tough-minded. Was that attitude something you always had, or does a moment like that where you're not drafted and you're kind of crushed and then have to go to work, as you said, does that create that persona?
Well, you have to work at it, but also was born with a little bit of it because how hard my parents worked. I worked at a young age because I didn't want my mother to have to, pay for my school clothes because we had 6 kids in the family. My dad always told me, if it doesn't work, try something different. And, when I played the CBA, I had to spend 5 years. Once I got to New Jersey and I saw the way the Knicks played the game, I didn't have to adjust my game. I just had to come in and sacrifice some of the things that I did offensively, but I was going to make sure that I was in the best shape and I was the best defensive player on the court because, traveling around the city, riding the train a couple of times, going to different boroughs, seeing the hustle and bustle in the city of Manhattan, I didn't want to let the fans down because they paid hard money to come and watch. Then I wanted to give them 110% every time I was on the floor.
You had a successful stint, Quad City Thunder in the CBA. Ultimately, you landed the NBA with the Nets, but then before the 96-97 season, you get a free agent deal from the Knicks. When they reached out to you, who reached out to you? How did that conversation go in the way that you remember it? And were you excited to join the Knicks?
Yeah, I remember it because I tried out with the Dallas Mavericks one year, and Derek Harper was there, and Steve Alford was their rookie. And I was dominating Steve. And Derek even gave me one of his Mercedes convertibles to drive around because he was like, yeah, you're going to make the team because he taught me so much. Huh. And so when I ended up going to Jersey, playing against the Knicks, and I think it was one of the final games, and I used one of Derek's moves to steal the ball from him and score the winning bucket. And instead of him sulking after the game, he gave me a big hug and he said, good job. And I think that's when the Knicks saw that I was able to run a ball club. I was a heady defender. And Ernie Grunfeld called me. And he said, hey, we want to give you, what you want. We talked to your agent because I was going to go to the Lakers because they offered me 5 years, but New York came in and offered me 6 years, and I'm glad they did because there's no other place like New York to play sports.
Well, you join a team that had so many gutsy guys, and they had been in the NBA Finals a couple of years earlier. Jeff Van Gundy's the head coach now, as Pat Riley had gone to the Heat. And in your first postseason, you guys match up with the Heat. And so here is Riley versus the Knicks. The city is on fire. Everybody can't take Riley. And the Heat play a style of basketball that's very similar to the Knicks, kind of a bully ball, bruising type of basketball. So that series, that first series that you play against the Heat is pretty intense. And you guys are up 3-1, and Game 5 happens, and the Charlie Ward, P.J. Brown brawl goes haywire. The whole series goes haywire. What do you remember about that moment and that play?
Well, I know I was at the other end of the court, and I saw, the whole blockout thing, and I played with PJ, so because when you're playing against a bigger guy and you're trying to squeeze him so he doesn't get the offensive rebound, you're taught to hit him at his hip and take his legs up. And so I guess PJ took offense to that. And when I saw Charlie get flipped, you can see me run in, and Tim Hardaway's there, so I get inside there, and then you can see Tim push me from behind, and it just became mayhem. I don't think we got a fair shake because I think 7 players got suspended, and they had to split between 3 and 4 at the time. And us being up 3-1, I didn't like the way they went about it, but I'm not the commissioner. All I can do is go out there and get the guys that we have and try to go out there and compete.
Most of the Knicks players that were suspended for that game were starters or major players, Ewing, Houston, a number of guys. And so it completely flips the series. You guys are up 3-1 and then end up losing the next 3 games. And the Knicks have often felt like the commissioner and the league had it out for the Knicks because they didn't like the brand of basketball the Knicks were playing. Did you guys feel like the suspensions were maybe targeted because the league office wasn't happy with your style of play?
I mean, we both played the same style. The Heat did. I think we're a little more physical. We're in the Mecca. Might have been a little bit of bias, or they felt a little bit of pressure to do something about it. I mean, we still had players go out there and compete. We was up 3-1, so I'm not going to blame it on David Stern, rest in peace, or the league. I just blame it that we didn't get the job done, and they did.
Well, ultimately, that series goes the way of the Heat, but it sets the tone for this intense rivalry. If the Riley thing wasn't enough, now it's into overdrive, and you guys meet again in 1998, and this is the series where Jeff Van Gundy is holding on to the leg of your teammate of the Heat, as Mourning and LJ go at it, and here is Van Gundy holding on to the leg of Alonzo Mourning, as I'm sure he's terrified the same thing is going to happen, that guys are going to leave the bench. Take me into that series and just the type of bad blood that was already there even before those punches were thrown.
Well, we were excited and, excuse my language, pissed off, about what happened in 97. And when we found out that we were going to play them in 98, we knew we can beat them. We never, worried about that. But we had so much hatred towards them at that time that any little thing was going to tick somebody off. But let me rephrase what you said. Alonzo and Larry, that wasn't too much of a fight. And I'll tell Larry, they need to get in the gym and work on their 2-piece no biscuit. But no, those guys, and then Jeff was grabbing on Alonzo's. I was surprised, like, why is Jeff grabbing his leg like a chihuahua, like he's going to bite him or something? And so my whole protective, thing comes in, and I run over there and I grab Jeff. I get in between Eric Murdoch and I think it was it might have been Tim, it might have been somebody else, but I remember Murdoch was there, and all I wanted to do was get to my coach and get him up before he got stopped like a jockey falling off a horse. And the funny thing is, once I pulled him up, all he cared about was fixing his little comb over. Right? He's fixing his hair. I'm like, Jeff, what are you doing? But it was one of the funnier moments in the NBA. I was just so happy to be a proud of that team. I love the Knicks. I love that team in particular. And that we knew that we had a really good shot. And when we played in '97 and lost, we knew we had a good shot to beat the Bulls. We just wanted to see the Bulls in the finals, and that took it away from us, but we wanted the Heat to pay for that.
So it was so interesting that LJ and Zoe were going at it because those guys were teammates back in Charlotte, and yet here they are, as you said, trying to fight. I don't know if it was a real fight, as you mentioned, but did you know that LJ and Zoe had that animosity and that it might erupt like that?
I heard they had a little bit of, strife because I guess Alonzo got paid first. When they were down in Charlotte, he got his $100+ million. Larry wanted his. Who knows? We can only, speculate. We weren't there to know in the locker room to know what was going on, but I knew it was a little bit of strife between those two, but I didn't know that they were going to come to blows, but they had been, talking back and forth, and I'm like, okay, something might happen here, and it did.
Did you like playing for Van Gundy?
I did. Jeff was a great X and O guy. He worked hard. For some reason, he thought that he could play because he would come, before practice and try to play one-on-one, and it wasn't happening. But give the guy A for effort. But he was very intense, a very prepared guy. You see how Tibbs is coaching right now. Tibbs was our defensive coach, so those guys never let us go into a game or a series not prepared. If you weren't prepared, it wasn't because of them. It was because you didn't do your homework.
Do you feel those memories coming back of the Heat and Knicks when you are watching the current series and them playing in the playoffs now?
Yeah, I look at the team, and I still go in point guard mode and coach mode. And I see myself screaming at the TV like, quickly, get to the basket, stop shooting threes. Obi, get to the basket. But I have to calm down because I'm around other people, and we're usually watching the game at the golf course. And so I have to be kind of, calm in those situations. But I see a lot of the '99 team we had, when we had Spree and Allen and getting up the floor and getting early shots in the possession. So I see that, but I never thought in a million years that Jalen would play the way he's playing right now. He's playing lights out, and he's a team leader, and he's going to be one of the all-time greats. I need Randall to give me a little more. I need him to get in the paint. Against the Heat, you can't fall in love with threes because possessions are important. So whoever can get into the bonus early in each quarter, not rebound, the other is going to have a chance to win the series.
There's a lot of you and Jalen Brunson. I think this competitor, a guy that's not going to back down from anybody, and a guy that really embraces the moment and embraces what New York and the Knicks are all about. So, I kind of feel like Brunson's a throwback that he could play in your era. What do you think?
Oh, of course. He reminds me a little bit of Terrell Brandon and Daniel Stoudemire. That herky-jerky, keep you on your heels at all times, and he always gets his shoulder past the defender. I don't care if they're big or smaller. He always gets his shoulder past the defender, so he's able to get his shot off against bigger guys. He's more of a quiet. He leads by example. I lead by example, but I'm also vocal. I'm not afraid to get in your face, and he might be the same way too. I know his dad was like that, a big jokester, but I don't know about Jalen, but what he's doing right now is incredible. Hey, honey.
When you guys beat the Heat in '98 after what happened in '97 with the suspensions and losing the 3-1 series lead, how sweet was that?
What? Now say it again.
How sweet was it to beat the Heat in '98 after what happened in '97?
It's always sweet to beat the Heat. I don't care if we're playing jacks or hopscotch or jump rope. I can't stand them. So once we got our revenge, I really enjoyed it. We celebrated, but we once we beat them, we like, okay, that's done. Now let's get back to business, because the ultimate thing is to win the championship. We wanted to beat them, but they were just in the path of us getting to where we needed to get to.
Unfortunately, the 98 run ends after that, but that brings us to 99, and it is the shortened season because of the labor stoppage. So it's kind of a sprint to the finish line. You guys only play about 50 games that season, and everybody's really bunched up because of so few games played. So you end up as the 8 seed that year, which it just so happens the Heat are the 1 seed. My guess is you didn't feel like an 8 seed in 99, but it really was very sweet because you got the Heat in the first round. How did it feel going into that postseason?
Oh, we were ready. I think we had to win 10 of our last 15 games to make it to the HC. And knowing that the Heat were going to be number one, we weren't afraid of them. We knew that we could beat them, and we had brought in new guys. So it took us a long time to mesh and trust each other and understand each other's game. And so once we got going, and I remember Jeff saying, let's just win one game at a time. And then once we do that, and then we get on the run, we'll worry about who we face once we get there. And then us seeing the Heat at number one, we just licked our chops like we can beat them. So let's go get it done.
So it's only a 5-game series of the first round back then, and it brings us to the culmination, which is Game 5 and Allen Houston's runner. Tell me about that Game 5 and about that final play and how you remember how it all went down.
Well, it was very intense. It was like two heavyweights, in the ring, just body shots after body shots. And I just knew if we had the last possession that we would win the game. And we run the same play. They run the same play. X from the top, Allen comes up to the top of the key, but that ball was deflected. But Allen caught it, and I think Dan Marley was on him, so he kind of overran the play. Allen got by him and shoots his regular soft, smooth shot, and that thing hit the rim about 4 times. And then it went in, and I've never seen Allen get that excited. He ran all the way down to the other end and threw a little, fist pump, and I was happy for him and happy for the team.
When you say that it was always sweet to beat the Heat because you never liked the Heat, what was it about the Heat that you didn't like?
I think it was just the way they would play a certain way, but then they would complain to the refs. If we're going to be physical, let's be physical, but don't start whining back to the refs once you get, we all physical. And that was just my thing with them. Stop crying to the refs about, hard fouls and tough play. You guys are playing the same way with us, but we're not complaining. And then also with Tim, he was a little whiner. I didn't like his voice. I don't even like the way he sounds. He doesn't sound like a man. And then he's on TV now, and why? You can't understand anything he says. Like, why are you talking? I mean, come on, man. They put guys on TV that can't even speak well. Have you seen them on the show?
Yeah.
Sound like a Muppet. Hey, so I'm like, what? Hey, just put on the teleprompter and move his face out the way. Hey, I'm going to get talked about so bad because I got to stop that because my kids that I train, they're going to see this, say, Coach, you told us not to talk about people. So, hey, I'm having one of those moments.
well, we appreciate it. Look, Knicks-Heat brings that up. No, you can't be blamed. Remembering the Knicks-Heat, it brings it up with everybody. So how did the rest of the guys feel who had been coached by Riley? I mean, that your teammates that had Riley as their head coach of the Knicks must have even had a different type of hatred for him.
Well, I mean, they never really spoke about it. Oakley, Patrick, they still had a lot of admiration for him. I had a lot of admiration for him for how he coached in LA with the Knicks and now with the Heat. And so I always had respect for the man. Charlie and all those guys, they never really spoke about it afterwards, other than what they did in practice and try to help get us prepared to go out there and play some of the things that he would do in certain situations. But other than that, it was just focused and ready to go to work.
In 99, you knock off the Heat in 5 games. That puts you in the second round against the Hawks and then the Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers. You move through the Hawks easily, and you clinch the NBA Finals appearance at Madison Square Garden against the Pacers. I was actually in the building that day. Take me back to the moment where you guys clinch and you're going to your first NBA Finals.
Man, when Larry hit that shot and the Garden erupted and he ran to the other end, and I'm like, look, point guard mode, look, game's only tied, calm down. You need to make this free throw, because he was just so animated. And one thing about Larry and our relationship, I was able to speak to him no matter what situation. I can curse at him, I can pat him on the butt. He would accept it, and either he would tell me, Chris, shut up, or, you know what, you're right. But at the end of the day, after it was all said and done, he would come back to me and say, you know what, you were right about that. So I have a lot of respect for Larry, because he gave up so much, and when he made that shot, it couldn't happen to a guy that sacrificed so much. And then going to the final, like, we finally did it. But then you start thinking, God, we got guys injured. I wish we had everybody there, because we went up against two Megatrons. And those guys, you know, 2 7-footers, it was tough without Patrick to get out there and bang with those guys. But we gave it our all. It didn't work out for us, but I can say that out of my 10, 11 years I played, I made it to one finals.
If you guys have Patrick that year, do you think it's a different NBA Finals?
Absolutely. Because then you can play Marcus and Patrick down there, and you got LG at the 3. He can guard Sean Elliott and, you know, bully him, or the Jackson kid. So we had a couple of different sets that we could have put together, lineups that we could have put out there to compete against their big guys.
You guys had a real tight bond on the Knicks, and there were guys that were there before you, but you certainly had a real relationship, as you said, with LJ and other guys. What was it about all of you guys of the 90s Knicks that it seemed like there was a really deep bond and brotherhood? What was the common theme there?
Well, when I got there, I remember going to practice, and Oak seeing how I played. He said, okay, I take care of the big guys, you take care of the guards. You know, and the thing that made it special is that whether we were at home, on the road, a lot of times the coaches police the players. We didn't need a coach to police us. We policed each other, the players. We had respect, because it wasn't just lip service. It was the work that you're putting in the weight room, in the gym, in the off season. We did everything together, and so we can see it. And so once you see a guy doing something a certain way, like, okay, I can follow that guy because he's doing it just as well. And so the leadership that we had, the camaraderie, the love, the desire just to win. You don't have to always like the person, but you have to respect them. And when you're on the court, the ultimate thing is just to win the game. And we didn't care who scored 30, who scored 5, who got 10 rebounds. It was all about the W.
That's really a beloved Knicks team. All those 90s teams of the Knicks are really beloved, and that's really the last glory era of the Knicks. Why did you personally enjoy playing in New York? Why did you embrace the city so much?
It was just, you know, growing up in California, I wasn't a Laker fan. I was a Philadelphia fan and a New York fan, because I loved watching Clyde play the game. That's Walt Clyde Frazier on both ends of the floor. And then, you know, being in Jersey, going over to the city, seeing how hard people work, seeing the garbage truck workers, seeing the train people. I had a friend that worked for the train station, so I saw how hard he worked. I just wanted to go out there and give them something that nobody else seen there. You got Michael Jordan, those guys coming in and high flyers, but I'm a guy that's going to, you know, put my hard hat on and my steel toe boots, and I'm going to do the dirty work. You know, the stuff that people don't want to do. That's the type of guy that I was, and I wanted the city to see what my mother, Johnny Childs and James Childs, made, and that was a man that would come to work every day and give it 110%. And I just love that city. There's not a city like it. I was just down there for a watch party with some of the fans, and I miss it. I got off the airplane, and I was like, God, man, I miss this city. I wish I could go to the Garden and suit up right now, but I can just be a fan from afar now.
Pretty cool. You're also the head of the Chris Childs Foundation, which does a lot of good for both adults and children. Tell me about why you've poured your heart into the Chris Childs Foundation and who it helps most.
Well, it's something that my dad and I started a long time ago, and he was a person that helped everybody in the community, whether it's people do their taxes, whether it's people learning a second language, because there was a lot of Mexicans coming from Mexico that moved into the neighborhood. My dad would help them. So we started that. I've always just wanted to help people, whether it was the young kids, the fatherless young men on the street, the homeless, mentoring basketball, just mentoring life, because we only get one shot at this thing, you know. And my father taught me that when you walk out the door, you're auditioning for somebody. Somebody's watching. So if I can help these young men and women see that and be on their best performance when they walk out the door, then that's the impression that people are going to have, and they're going to remember. So they'll be successful carrying themselves in that way, and that's why I continue to do what I do.
Where can our listeners and viewers, fans of this podcast, be able to learn more about the Chris Childs Foundation, or possibly and hopefully donate to it?
They can just hit me, goldenchilds@gmail.com. Leave me a reply on my email address. He leaves your number. I'll call it personal. Get my number. Personal. This is mostly private donors, but I like to talk to people and let them understand who I am. I did play basketball. That's not who I am. I have a different side of me. Yeah, I like to meet each and every one of them on the phone or in person to have a conversation about what we do here in Jackson.
It's an amazing foundation that you have, and I just feel like your spirit, every time you and I speak, I'm so impressed by your attitude, your spirit, and your message of just when you walk out that door, you're auditioning for somebody, so carry yourself that way. It's a pretty powerful message, and I feel like you carry that throughout your NBA career. So, you know, that's a testament to you and your character. How important is it for people to keep that in mind no matter where they are in their life?
Because people are watching. You never know who's watching, and you should have to put on an act. Professionals, everyday people, if we get back to loving each other, respecting one another, we'll live in a better world. But we're always going out there trying to be something that we're not. You know, some guys want to be. The coolest thing is to do the right thing. Do the right thing. Treat people nice. Say hello to everybody. Hold the door for a lady. Just do something positive once a day, and that goes a long way in us rebuilding this country that we live in, so that we can get back to loving one another and just being a happy country. That's how I am, and I'll continue to be that way until my home is hurt.
Well, it's pretty impressive. Always try to treat people the right way, unless they're a member of the Miami Heat, right?
Exactly.
Chris Childs, our guest here on New York Accent. You can subscribe to the podcast everywhere that podcasts are downloaded. Also on YouTube. Check us out on the WFAN channel there. Chris, I love our conversations. Thanks so much for the time today. Hit them straight. Good luck. I love that you're on the golf course right now. Go get them.
Appreciate you, dude. Take care, man.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy New York Accent, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more episodes like this one. Also, if you want to watch more episodes of New York Accent, check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to follow us on social media, @DA on CBS on Twitter, @Damon Amendo on Instagram, to stay up to date on our latest episodes when we release a new episode. And other links are in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you for the next episode of New York Accent.